One of the most exclusive conferences was in our backyard this week for the energy industry. I'm Michael Smith, and welcome to the Lowdown. Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Smith. Welcome to the Lowdown. Today, joining me, special guest Edgar Pelaez. And Edgar, you were asked this past week to be a special editor for Petroleum Magazine to cover CERAWeek. And for those that don't know, what exactly is CERAWeek, and why is this an exclusive conference?
CERAWeek by S&P Global is the premier conference of the energy industry, and it's been held in Houston for the last 40 years. This is the 40th edition. The chairman is Daniel Jurgen, very well known in the energy industry for his analysis, his critiques, his strategy, depiction of the energy industry, and the several books he has written.
Well, if you have never read The Prize, I recommend anyone is in Houston doing business, move to Houston. The Prize is the absolute book you have to have at least read before you can call yourself a Houstonian, in my opinion. So, great book.
Absolutely.
Well, so CERAWeek has typically what's called a theme, right? Do you always have a theme in which the conference basically starts out on? What was this year's theme? And tell us a little bit about some of the other themes with it.
The theme this year, very appropriately so, was the multidimensional energy transition. Why is that important? Because for the first time, the stakeholders in the energy transition are agreeing on a consensus.
Wow.
They're working towards the same goals, and they are approaching the energy transition as it should be, multidimensional. That means all players are needed, all energies are needed, and to contribute to the global energy transition.
So tell us a little bit more about, kind of maybe dig into some of the themes there around this. I mean, this is the first time, as you mentioned, I've heard a consensus, right? I think that's a big game changer. Typically, you don't see that. You've had opposing factors, but give us a little bit more color on that.
A little bit of the roots, we can go back and saying COP28, the environmental conference that was held in the United Arab Emirates. For the very first time, all stakeholders in the energy industry were invited to attend. And the energy transition stakeholders were all present at the same table. They agreed and acknowledged the energy transition. They agreed and acknowledged that it was multidimensional, that it's needed in different ways, not one size fits all, and that each region and each country will be adapting to the technologies and the solutions to drive an energy transition.
Well, so one of the biggest factors we're seeing out there that's been a game changer, and my curiosity is, how is the use of artificial intelligence or AI? Did you see that as a big part of the theme? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I'm glad you noted that. Daniel Jurgen, in several of the presentations that he moderated, precisely asked the questions, let's talk about artificial intelligence. It was in the conversation in every presentation. It is driving efficiency. It is being used to drive productivity. It is being used to shorten the time of developments of technology. And artificial intelligence is the backdrop that is behind industry and technology development today.
And so you think so AI it seems like AI, artificial intelligence, is helping on the two fronts you mentioned, diversity of the energy and the speed of this as well, right?
Absolutely. And it's making talent work smarter and faster. You get more productivity from your talent workforce. You shorten the development time. Artificial intelligence is helping in modeling. A word that is being used today is digital twins, where you develop a digital model of a project, of a technology, and you may not need to test it in hard assets, but through a computer model. Artificial intelligence is a big part of the enablement of those processes.
Did you hear any discussions around maybe the revival of nuclear, right? You've heard about nuclear energy revival. Was that a part of the conversation? What was your thoughts on that?
Nuclear was definitely part of the conversation. There is a revival around the type of nuclear energy that can be developed to produce electricity. In the new nuclear talk, we're talking about different type of reactors. The possibility of having the traditional reactor, which is very large and expensive, modular reactors and micro reactors, all having a place in the future of the nuclear energy.
What about any type of bridge technology? In the past, I know being here in Houston, we've heard for a long time, LNG or natural gas being a bridge. Do you see more acceptance of that, or is that still kind of a dissent?
In my opinion, gas has completely consolidated as the transition fuel.
Okay.
And is being used in many ways to bridge the gap between traditional energy and the energy future. LNG is also giving the opportunity to the U.S. to export energy and assert itself as the predominant hydrocarbon producer and energy producer of the world.
So the U.S. still being the top producer, I mean, do you see that changing in the short term or long term, or do we stay on top producer for a while?
Not anything that it was talked at CERA.
Okay.
At CERA Week, the U.S. will continue to be the preeminent producer. It was quoted to potentially produce 14 or 15 million barrels of oil a day, up from 13 where it is right now. Additional production of LNG and driving demand of products for export into other countries.
Well, in conclusion, Edgar, what would you say the big takeaways were for those listening to this podcast?
I would like to talk about two large takeaways. Number one, a transition needs to be balanced, sustainable, achievable, affordable, just, and equitable. A consensus around that. Big takeaway of the meeting. The second takeaway, oil and gas is not a bad word. Oil and gas is part and a strong part of the energy transition. The oil-producing companies are working to make the production of hydrocarbons cheaper and less carbon intense, and be work in parallel with other technologies to continue to deliver energy in the world. The third takeaway, the world is going to need more energy. And all energies are needed. All energies have a place. And the world is working now aligned in consensus to achieve those goals.
Well, Edgar, great stuff. I appreciate your time and thanks for joining, but looking forward to having you again.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for Petroleum Magazine and the articles they're going to put out summarizing CERA Week.
Great. Thank you.